I am Karen Raymond. I'm one of the business advisors here at the Collin Small Business Development Center. And today we are going to be hearing from Lorna Kibbe on managing in the virtual world. And as we all know, a lot of people are working from home today. But we are excited about our Collins SBC CARES program, which we have been real fortunate to bring some national experts in to host webinars and to provide customized training and consulting. Our program is designed to advance your understanding of the 2021 business trends, learn to diagnose new challenges in your business, identify hacks that makes the business the best use of your time and money, which is very important, and increase the probability of substantial growth. The CARES program, again, it stands for Compete, Advance, Recover, Elevate, and Succeed. And so with that said, little housekeeping here, everyone is muted. Therefore, if you have any questions, please utilize the chat box. Lorna will answer all the questions at the end of the presentation. She will have some polls, so we definitely want everybody to jump in on the polls and answer them. We will upload the presentation to YouTube, and you can visit our Collin SBDC YouTube channel to review this presentation or ones that may be the webinars that you've missed. We will send out an evaluation after this presentation. We would greatly appreciate if you would take the time to give us feedback. With that all said, I want to introduce Ms. Lorna. Lorna is a content speaker and author who focuses on helping leaders develop their most important and most complex resources, people. Through her company, Lorna Kibbe Leadership Solutions, Lorna designs and delivers leadership seminars, motivational keynotes to a variety of audiences. She is certified to conduct workplace assessments, workshops for teams, and workshops for all levels of employees using everything DISC. Her years of experience in the public sector, combined with her years of practice in all types of organizations, has made her the leadership expert she is today. In fact, she wrote the book on becoming a better boss. Her book, Becoming a Better Boss, your guidebook to 25 fundamental management responsibility, was published in 2019. Well, I'm excited to turn this over to Ms. Lorna and hear about managing in a virtual world. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about managing in a virtual world. And this is a really interesting subject because it's a subject that we didn't talk about a year ago. It's funny how we've been kind of forced into doing some of these things, huh? Right? So today I'm really excited to talk to you about this because I think you're going to find that there's a lot you already know. I know a year ago when we got the word that we were to stay home, what I started to get from business owners everywhere was, this is impossible. There is no way. There's no way we can do our work from home. And what's really funny is, I have to tell you this story. I had a manager that was in a class of mine in February, just before this all hit. And we were talking about the future of management. It's a certification class that I do. And, you know, we talk about all kinds of subjects, but in this session, we were talking about the future of management. And it was a customer who had like service centers. And he's like the director. He was arguing that there would never be a way for them to work remotely. They would never be able to work from home or have people work from home. And there were other people in the room, there were like 25 people in there who were in his department, who were, you know, trying to argue the other way and saying, you know, it would be possible for us to do some of our work that way. It would be a nice benefit for us to offer. He was so adamant, never can we do this. And, you know, I would try to ask questions like, why do you think we could never do this? He said, because our customers want us to be at that service desk from 8 to 5. And I said, but you know, it's interesting. You told me a little while ago that people are now wanting your services around the clock. They want to go online at 3 a.m. and see if they can, get the service. Well, that doesn't matter. We're open 8 to 5 and our people have to be on the desk 8 to 5. I mean, it just went on and on. It was ridiculous. He's like so adamant. I would have loved to have talked to him a month later when the entire world was forced to go remote. But I have talked to several of his employees, and the good news is they're doing it. What they thought was impossible, they're making it happen. As a matter of fact, they're having some pretty great success with it. And when you talk to them, same way probably a lot of you feel about what'll happen when COVID's under control, and it will someday be under control. We will be okay. They say, we'll never go back to the old way. I hope we never go back to the old way of doing it, because we're being more productive and more efficient by handling kind of a hybrid situation. So we really went from, believing that this was all very impossible to believing maybe it is possible. I just think this is really interesting when you look at the word impossible. Isn't this interesting? Maybe you've seen this before, but I'm almost fascinated with it. Impossible becomes impossible with just a little bit of grammatical correction. So that's the interesting thing. A lot of things that we thought were just really impossible a year ago, we're now mastering. We're doing really well, and it's possible to do things we just never even believed we would. I think what's going on is something very unique. And to be honest, I'm actually pretty excited to be living this, because how many times in your life do you get to be so actively and fully involved in a complete paradigm shift? And I think that's what's going on right now. We're having a complete paradigm shift. Now, Joel Barker introduced us to this whole concept of paradigm shifts in business. And this was his definition. A paradigm is a set of rules, written or unwritten, that establishes boundaries within which we learn how to be successful. And what Barker told us was that when there's a paradigm shift, all of those rules go out the window. Everything goes back to zero. We're not in the same reality anymore. I kind of think that's what's going on. I mean, when you think about history, this isn't the first paradigm shift that we've seen. Actually, they happen a lot. I mean, I love the story of Alexander Graham Bell. In 1890s, he went to AT&T with his telephone invention and was told, this is nothing but a toy. This will never be anything but a toy. Get away from us. They sent him on his way. A few years later, he bought AT&T, and now look what's happened. That was a paradigm shift, and there have been many. Have you ever heard of Blockbuster? Do you remember using cassette tapes? Some of you are going, what's that, right? Completely different. Now our music is digital. I don't even know if we'll have flash drives much longer, I was thinking that the other day, all these pictures I have on flash drives. What's next? Probably won't even need them. Those were all examples of paradigm shifts. But this is really remarkable because it's affecting us as business owners. It's affecting us in ways that we never thought that we'd go. When a paradigm shifts, everything goes back to zero. That's what Barker told us. And here's something interesting. Usually, the first problems that you solved in a new paradigm are problems that were unsolvable in the old paradigm. Let me say that again. Usually, the first problems that we solve in a new paradigm are problems that were unsolvable with the old paradigm. And your past success guarantees nothing. See, just like that manager I was telling you about, his problem was they would never be able to work remotely. He couldn't solve that problem. There's no way he could see it happen. But with the paradigm shift, they had to start over. Everything went back to zero. They had to find a way to work remotely, even though it's something that they were totally unprepared for and didn't see any way to solve the problem. Now they've been forced to solve the problem in new ways, and they're being successful. So I'm curious, and Karen, we're going to put up our first poll here, if you would. I mean, we're definitely in the middle of a paradigm shift. What I'm wondering is it possible that you've actually been able to solve some problems that will fundamentally change what you do for the better? Karen, you got our poll? Karen's muted. There we go. So if you wouldn't mind chiming in on this for me, we are in fact in the middle of a paradigm shift concerning the way we do business. So are you successfully finding ways to solve problems that will fundamentally change what you do for the better? What do you think? So if you wouldn't mind chiming in, let's see what you got here. Let's see how people are feeling about it. I think it's really possible that we are finding new ways of doing things that before we didn't consider. I've seen a lot of examples of it. Even in my business, I'm a speaker. I go to conferences and I speak in front of audiences. Now I found a way to deliver my message virtually. Have we got it, Karen? Ready to go? Can you show me the results? The results are lost. Oh, here we go. Okay, look at this. We have some good positive response. Yes, absolutely. And I'm working on it. We have no train wrecks. I'm happy about that. No train wrecks. And other people are feeling, I mean, this is great. I mean, you're working on it, or yes, absolutely. And for those of you that are still working on it, and even for those of you that said yes, absolutely, I think we need to have a little shift in our thinking and understand that some of these things that we've been forced to do can turn out to be great success factors for us if we embrace it and learn how to use it in our business. I know that when COVID is over, I probably won't go back to doing business exactly the way I did it before COVID, even though, like April 1st, all the work that I had scheduled was canceled. All of it, because all conferences and all in-person meetings were canceled and everything went virtual. And a lot of people weren't ready to do that yet. So I think when COVID's over, I'm going to do some of each. I don't think I'll go back to the way I was doing it before, because I found some real benefits in this new method. So I think part of this is mindset. We need to kind of wrap our heads around the fact that we are living in a paradigm shift, and that can be good. That can be good. There are some real benefits to what's going on right now. Some benefits for our remote employees, right? Let's see, what kind of benefits? If anybody wants to chat, you're welcome to put some comments in chat. But I don't know, here are the things I'm kind of hearing. First of all, it's really, really nice to have more time at home. A lot of people are enjoying that. They're with their children, they're with their pets. They don't have the long commute to work. A lot of people are really enjoying that. I've had people tell me they feel they're healthier because they're taking time to exercise instead of riding in a car for an hour to the office, right? A lot of people are saying they're more productive. They're being much more productive. They're able to think more clearly and focus on the work. They like being able to take breaks whenever they want and talk to teachers. They're just happy they can go to the bathroom anytime they want. So there are benefits. But we need to understand that when it comes to this remote thing, there are some things that are missing. And for those of us who are business owners or leaders in our businesses, managers, we need to recognize that these things are missing and be aware of them. Face-to-face interaction, I miss it. And I know you do too. I mean, it's just a different thing when you're talking to somebody face-to-face. And when we're working remotely, Zoom is great. The tools that we have are like mind-boggling wonderful, but it's just not the same as having like that team access, that access to your manager during the day, where you run into them at the water cooler or getting a cup of coffee, and you have that unplanned collaboration where you talk about these issues, and 15 minutes later you go back with this crystal clear picture of what you need to do, even though you couldn't figure it out 20 minutes ago. All of that's missing. Some of our employees that are working remotely are having a real issue with just having a focused environment. Believe it or not everybody has a spare room in their house where they can go and shut the doors and just focus on, looking at themselves in the camera or looking at you or working remotely. So I find that interesting. I've seen all kinds of office configurations, in some of the training I've done. Like one day, this lady, we came back from lunch and I hear, and like, what is going on? She had gone on her lunch hour to Goodwill to buy a table to put up behind her couch so she could put her computer on it, because she had nothing. She had no way to set up an office. So that's something that many of us have had to work on. But just remember, the environment's not always as focused. Cats walk across people's shoulders and pets get in the way and kids climb on you. And I'm not even going to talk to you about the guy that came out of the shower with just a towel wrapped around him. That was really bad. Walked right behind the camera, right behind his wife who was on the camera with me. Oh, he was a hairy guy. That's scary. That was kind of scary. Anyway, nonverbals. Don't forget, those nonverbals, that's missing. Especially when you're on the phone, even on Zoom, it's hard to look at everybody at once. Karen and I were talking before the session about teaching in person and how much we miss that audience interaction, just being face to face, watching the nonverbals. When I'm with you face to face, when I'm speaking to you face to face, I can look in an audience and I can really gauge what's going on. I can see when to shift, when to pause, and what to do. But with this, I can't see you. And that's really missing. I don't have the nonverbals. I'm not getting that feedback. So remember, be cautious because communication is definitely not at its best. And then tools. I can't tell you how many times I have people come to trainings with just their phone. Some of you are maybe using your phone now, but doing a 4-day management certification class using your phone is not really a good idea. And I've seen people have to do it because that's all they have. We were just really not prepared to take all of our work and put it out there virtually, right? And have all the tools and equipment that we need. There was a backlog for months, even trying to buy, a camera for our computer or whatever. I waited like 6 months to get a new camera because mine was like doing weird stuff. So yeah, not everybody has the tools. So there are some things that are missing for sure. So the question is, how do we help ourselves? How do we help our employees? And how do we help our customers in this new paradigm? Well, today I'm going to talk to you about 5 must-dos. These are things that you have to do. And I'm going to be straight with you. These things are not new. Most of them, you already know they're important. You've talked about them. You know them. You've used them. But perspective and execution are different. Things have changed so that we have to change the way we do these things. And we need to see them in a whole new way and apply them differently for our remote workforce, for our hybrid workforce, where things are just different. We have to find a way to take it from impossible to possible. So here's the first thing. I first want you to know that when I started talking about this, I was convinced that people were telling me, we need training. That's a whole new skill set. It's a whole different way of managing. And I'm thinking it's not. You apply it differently, but a lot of the skills that you've used before are the same skills you need now. I was so happy when I found this article in Harvard Business Review that said one of the biggest misconceptions about managing remotely is that it requires an entirely different skill set. I was so happy to see that. It doesn't. It's the same skills that you've always used. It's just applying them a little bit differently, just how we execute. So let's start with this one. Here's number 1, clarity. This is so important right now. We know always that it's important for our mission to be clear, for our vision to be clear, for people to understand what our expectations are. But now it's more important than ever, mainly because we're having such problems with communication, such challenges with communication, and because we're in such a massive state of change. And when you're in a massive state of change, clarity is so critical. People really need a lot of reinforcement on communication. They need to understand what we're working on right now. They need to know when it changes. Maybe some of you have read the book Good to Great, where I got this from Good to Great. I love this. In truly great companies, change is a constant, but not the only constant. So change is nothing new. We have to understand the difference between what should never change and what should be open for change, between what is truly sacred and what is not. But in times of paradigm shift, even these things can change. Some of us have changed our business model. I have. Some of us have changed even what our focus is. I have. I've gone from focusing on, speaking in person to speaking virtually. So talking about these things with our employees and including them and making sure that we're crystal clear on what we're working on is vitally important, especially right now. This was in USA Today, this morning's newspaper, this was there. I was like, what? They agree with me. And look what they're saying is governors' ratings on clarity fall short. And this is about COVID and, the problems that we're having with the COVID vaccine and getting the word out and making sure that everybody gets the shot. Clarity, they're saying, is the big issue. And that's where we've really slipped. So I just thought, since that was in today's paper, we should bring that up because that really supports what we're saying here. One of the things that I do when I go out to work with organizations is I focus on clarity by talking to the staff, and I ask person by person, what's the main thing here? What's the main thing that you're working on right now? Because I want to make sure there's clarity about what's most important and what the main thing is, what's most important. Most of the time, I get completely different answers from different people. It's very rare for me to walk into an organization where everybody understands what the main thing is. That's under normal circumstances. That's before the paradigm shift, before COVID. So I can only imagine right now what's going on. So this is my first piece of advice to you, is make sure that you're doing everything to be clear about what your main thing is. What is your expectation? What am I supposed to be working on right now? And don't be surprised if your main thing changes, because we are in such a massive state of change right now. It's just make sure the people that are affected by it get the message that it's changed. Because here's the thing, if you're not really crystal clear on what your main thing is, it doesn't mean that people aren't going to work hard. They're going to work so hard. You have those people, you trust them, they're going to work hard, but they're going to work hard on the wrong thing because they don't understand exactly what they're supposed to be working on. So we have to be crystal clear and make sure that everyone understands what is the main thing and get that message out there over and over again. And of course, communication is challenging. It always is. So we really have to focus on clarity. All right. Yes. All right. Number 2, mindful communication. You know it was going to come to this. It had to come to communication at some point, didn't it? But what I'm talking about here is really thinking through how we communicate, because we are so challenged in our communication methods right now. It's just really different when we're not face-to-face every day, and when some of the team is here and some of the team's not. I mean, there are teams that are still working completely from home. There are teams where some people come in one day and hang out a little while, and then others rotate. You're living it. So there are all kinds of configurations. One of the things I would recommend is having a deep conversation with everybody on the team about the best way to communicate. Now, this slide has a whole lot of stuff stuffed into it. So let me explain to you what this is illustrating to you. First thing is, look at the bottom, team core hours. It's really important to have overlapping hours where everybody on this team is active and available. This is crucial, so everybody will know when it's okay to communicate with each other. I recommend establishing these core hours with everybody on the team present, because one of the things we need to be aware of right now is that we have to be a lot more flexible even with our scheduling, right? I have my kids at home from 8:30 to 9. I need to get them going on their homeschooling. So if we could just make those core hours start at 9 until 8 instead of 8:30, that's going to make me a lot more focused. And if we do this with the whole team so that we can come up with those core hours, everybody knows that anytime between 9 and 4, you're working just like you're working in the office. I think this is one of the problems with remote work that we've been suffering from for a while. When we've had remote workers before COVID, we thought of them as not really a part of the team. They were out there doing their own thing. They're remote. The rest of the team doesn't depend on them. They don't depend on the team. That's gone. And I'm not sure that was ever the right attitude. But now people are working from home. They're still part of the team. They're still working. And we are going to have to really work hard to bring everybody in, make sure everybody's communicating, and keep them together as a team. So this could be my card right here. I could say, hey, here's my phone, guys. I know our core hours are 9 to 4, but I'm always going to work 8 to 5. So you can call me anytime between 8 to 5. But I'd really prefer you text me and say, can we talk in an hour? Because I'm the kind of person that gets focused. And, if you call me on the phone, I might not sound real happy to talk to you. right off the bat. You know what I'm talking about? So give me a text and let me know you're going to call me. Or, Zoom, you want to Zoom? Okay, just text me and let's set a time so that I know it's coming. Don't just dial me up on your screen and, oh, but when I haven't like got my shirt on or whatever. Well, if you're male, anyway, FaceTime me anytime. That's weird. And social media don't. What's with this FaceTime me anytime? Well, I'll tell you why I put that there. I put that there just to trick you and make you think, because I think of all of these different ways to communicate, there has to be one way, at least one, where I can just reach you anytime, whether it's phone or text. I need to be able to reach you. It doesn't need to be like, don't call me between, our core hours are 9 to 4, but don't call me between 2 and 4. Yeah, we have to have people available to communicate all day, just like we were in the office. But we can be respectful of what your preference is. And the reason we need to be so respectful of what your preference is because it's so hard to communicate under these conditions. And really, if you call me and my kids are dancing around my desk here in a circle playing cowboy and Indian, if you can just give me 5 minutes to send them off to their teepee, then that would be really great. So that's what this is all about, just trying to be considerate, but at the same time, understand when they're working from home, they are working, but we definitely have extenuating circumstances. I got this from somebody at ASBDC, and I thought this was fascinating because this was their signature line on their email. And I just copied and pasted it in here. And here, look at what it says. It says, remote working hours, 8:30 to 4 o'clock p.m. EST. I love that. That's what I'm talking about. Now, I know, one, that they're working from home, which is good to know, because if I call them and say I need this and it's in the office, they're not going to be in the office, right? I know to call from 8:30 to 4:30, and that it's Eastern Standard Time, because you know what? We do have different time zones. We need to be aware of that. So I thought that was brilliant. Maybe that's a great way to handle it. But obviously, this is a team that's talked through, how did these remote hours work? When are we available? What do we tell people? So I just thought that was really brilliant. So you might think about doing something like that in your signature line for now. And meetings, don't forget about meetings. People think that meetings are different because they're on Zoom or whatever software you're using. It's really not different. All the rules of effective meetings still apply. So just a few tips. The first thing is, whatever software you choose to do your team meetings remotely, just make sure that everybody has training on it. I've seen teams hop from application to application trying to figure out what's the best. I am a big Zoom fan. I love Zoom because it's very easy to work with. When you press the buttons, it does what it's going to say, and nobody else can see that you're messing with the buttons in the meantime. So I really like Zoom. I've had great success. I know there are other things that people are using, Teams and Google Meetups and all these things. Whatever you decide to use, just make sure everybody's got training on it. And the good news is it's free. All of this stuff is free online. You just gotta let people know where to access it and what you want them to access. In some circles, people think that I'm a Zoom expert, but the truth is that sometimes when somebody calls me to ask me a question about Zoom, on one screen, I'm looking at them, and on the other one, I'm Googling, how do you do this on Zoom? Because it's really just that easy. I mean, you can Google, how do I do this on Teams? How do I do this on Zoom? And then the answers are there. There's just so much out there. So training is not a big thing, and it's certainly not expensive at all. It's free. You just got to tell people that they need to become proficient in whatever software that you're using, and make sure that they have the tools and equipment they need. And I know people are really struggling with that, but you need to give that some thought. Don't just assume that people have the equipment, especially in some of our small businesses. Our employees, we think they have equipment for this, and not even their phone is sufficient. Look at what's happened in the school system, where they've had to supply hotspots to some homes because kids don't even have internet. So we just can't assume that people have the tools and equipment that they need. When it comes to your meetings, follow the rules. You probably had training on this before, but just a reminder, an agenda just like you've always done. I mean, if your meeting doesn't have a purpose, why are you meeting? So you need to do just like you always have. Make sure you identify your purpose, have your agenda, assign roles, who's going to take notes, who's going to write down the follow-up items, who's going to facilitate, just those kind of things. The ground rules. I'll stop here for a second because this is a little different. If you haven't established ground rules before in your meeting, it's always a good practice, but especially now, because on Zoom, there's some questions I have, like, do I have to leave my camera on? When is it okay to turn it off? And what about that mute button? Karen, when she started out, she set the ground rules for us. She said, everybody's on mute. She told us what was going on. Just have those discussions in your meeting. What do I do if I want to interrupt you and ask a question? Should I use one of those little things at the bottom where I can raise my hand, or do you want me to just raise my hand? How do we handle this meeting? So just cover those ground rules so that you can effectively facilitate your meetings. Zoom and the tools that we have are pretty great for having the meetings, but some people are still hesitant to speak because they're afraid they're going to interrupt somebody else. So talking about these things is a good idea. And I'll tell you another thing that I've really noticed with this technology, with the remote meetings, people that are sometimes very quiet in meetings seem to be pretty talkative, and people who are usually pretty talkative seem to be quieter. I'm wondering if you've noticed that too. It's interesting. It's like, I'm not sure why that's happening, but yeah. So you might have to do a little extra work just to make sure that you're hearing from everybody and getting everybody involved. And as always, make sure you capture your action items and do your follow-up. So just make sure that your meetings are effective. The one thing I'm going to caution you on meetings, though, is that what I see happening with many meetings is that people are becoming too let's get it done. That's not typically how a meeting goes. Typically when we have a meeting in the office, we gather, maybe 5 minutes before, or maybe at the time, and then talk for 5 minutes. Like, how are you? What's going on? Did you see this thing that happened yesterday? What about that guy? That small talk. And people are coming into Zoom meetings. We're going to start at 9, and they cut all the small talk and they stick, to they're so focused that they forget the human part of it. Don't forget that these meetings is where we network and where we get to know our coworkers. And when we get to know our coworkers, we're strengthening our team skills. So don't leave those things out. Find a way to incorporate some of that in your remote meetings. One of the things that I do is many times when I start a Zoom meeting with a group, a board, association, whatever the meeting is, we'll start out with just randomly assigning people to breakout rooms, and I'll do 2 or 3 people, just random assignment. And their mission is to say, good morning, how are you? And just check in. Don't forget, that people are really, a lot of people are just really not doing well with this. This is a really tough time. So it's an important time to check in and take care of that human aspect. So just don't forget that in meetings, to take a little time maybe to find some kind of cute computer game that you can use to go over your content. And there's a lot of great stuff out there. If you need more info on that, I'll be happy to talk to you about it. But yeah, do what you can to make your meetings interactive and more human, right? So Karen, we have a poll here on communication. Let's bring that up. I want to see how people are feeling about communication, if you wouldn't mind. 2020 brought many changes. Which answer do you think most accurately describes the quality of communications that you've had with your team and customers? How are you doing with this? What do you think? Has it become easier? You think it's about the same? Or are we back to that train wreck? It's been really difficult. Just like to see what you're thinking. Okay, Karen, what do you think? I think these folks are fast. Stayed about the same. Hey, why didn't everybody answer my poll? You guys aren't multitasking, are you? See, that happens sometimes. I don't know. Okay, so for this one person who was kind enough to respond, thank you very much. Communication has stayed about the same. I get really worried when it's more difficult, except that I kind of expect that answer, that it's been more difficult just because of the circumstances I've described. I hardly ever see anyone say it's become easier. And if it stayed about the same, then I would have to say kudos to you, because it means that you're maintaining the level that you had prior to the remote work, which is good. I might really consider increasing it just to make sure that you have clarity, make sure that everyone's on board with it. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Karen. Good with that. All right, here's our third thing, engagement, including everyone. What's happening with our remote workforce is that sometimes managers kind of leave out people who are working remotely. It's easier just to do it yourself anyway. And now it's like double challenging to try to include everyone and keep them engaged. So these are the same skills, but just employing them a little bit differently. First thing is that participatory management style. Get everybody involved, be open and transparent with what's going on. You're suffering this too. And how can we get through this together? What can we do? Make sure you have those channels open for feedback and input, and be patient, diligent. And here's an important one. Nobody gets off the hook. When you're talking with people, when you have a problem to solve, when you're having a meeting, make sure you include everybody. If somebody's not speaking up during a meeting, call them out. Make sure everybody's participating. We have to keep them engaged and included. So important right now to make sure everybody has a voice in this and everyone's speaking up. So a few tips for you, with your employees, talk about focus. What I hear from a lot of folks I talk to is that they have problems focusing some days. Some people have problems focusing a lot of days, just really getting in the zone from home. So maybe have some discussions around focus to talk about how you can really keep yourself engaged and working at a good productive level. Share tips for scheduling and creating a routine. Many of you are entrepreneurs. And if you are, then maybe you're used to working from home and you're used to that schedule. You've had that background and you're disciplined and you can do it. A lot of team members who are working remotely right now have no discipline when it comes to working at home, and they don't understand how to set a schedule for themselves and how to keep themselves moving with that routine. You would hope by now that people have overcome some of that, but clearly not everyone has. So, and the way you can do that is just share, just have in one of your meetings, have people talk about what is your routine? What have you found that works for you? What tips do you have for scheduling and for making a routine? Insist on professionalism with your folks from home. One of the things that happened to me, it was really funny. Right when COVID hit, right when we went through the big shutdown, I came to Tallahassee, Florida, and I've been living in Southwest Florida. And I came here, I'm like, I'm going to come to Tallahassee. I'm going to ride this out because it's a smaller town. I got a place there. I'm going to go to Tallahassee. I get to Tallahassee. I'm turning on the news to see what's going on. And the news people are dressed so poorly. They were wearing t-shirts, blue jeans, tennis shoes, and doing it from outside on the picnic table in their backyard, And I was like, oh my goodness, look how unprofessional this is. Look at these people in Tallahassee. Oh my goodness, this is horrible. Now, within 2 weeks, I turn on the TV and look, and they're wearing suits and ties and look like normal news people. But they went through a period when everything shut down where it's like, oh, everything's out the window, just wear whatever, it doesn't matter. It does matter. So don't forget that these people are still projecting an image of your business, of what you're doing, and make sure it's professional. I know people are dressing down. Hey, I'm not wearing any pants underneath here. No, I am, but they're jeans. But I look professional on top, right? So make sure that they are professional and they're coming across professionally. It's not okay just to throw everything out the window. We're still working, right? We're still working and we're still wanting to be successful. Encourage dialogue, not just conversation. Dialogue means that they have a part in the conversation and that they're really sharing with you the same way that you're sharing with them. Those growth opportunities that I talked about, it's amazing to me, like crazy amazing, how many free opportunities there are right now for growth. And, this is something you need to be talking with your folks about and taking advantage of yourself is, maybe challenge them. once a week, they have to watch a 1-hour webinar, or they, take advantage of one of these opportunities that are out there. There's so much out there that's free, completely free. We'll never see this again. We'll never see it again. I mean, people in my industry, we talk a lot about we're giving things away, just like the, free webinars, doing things for people. But it's because everybody wants to give back. And typically we charge for these kind of things. So we're starting to see that come back already. So I would encourage you to take advantage now of any of those learning opportunities that you can. You can get some really great things, just like now. Look at what you're getting. This is amazing. And there have been so many opportunities. Colin is offering you a ton of opportunities for great learning here and growth. So make sure that you're taking advantage of them. And by the way, kudos to those of you who are listening now. Good job. Take advantage of these opportunities. And don't forget about social connections, which I mentioned a little bit. Just, we can't do that very well through Zoom, but we shouldn't forget it. Maybe have one-on-one lunches with your employees or your remote workers, and do it on Zoom, but everybody brings their food to the table and you talk while you eat your sandwich. I don't know about you, but I've been involved in a few social happy hours on Zoom. It's really nice because you can, pretend like you're drinking wine when really you're drinking something else and nobody cares, but you use a wine glass and it looks like you're drinking, Of course, what was I saw on Facebook the other day that you should, if you have a coffee cup, you should blow in it to make them think that your wine is hot coffee. That's on Facebook. I thought it was funny. But do some social stuff. Don't forget to talk about just check in. How are you? How are things going? How are your kids doing with schooling? Just figure out where they're at. This is an important part of being a team. So helps people to stay engaged. All right, number 4 is probably my least favorite to talk about, and probably will be for you too. And it's about addressing problems. Yeah, this is a hard part of leadership and management. It's hard under normal circumstances to really stay on top of problems because we like harmony. We like a harmonious work environment. We like for things to go smoothly. And sometimes when there's problems, a great number of us will hope that it'll just go away. So not all of us are really good at dealing with problems as quickly as we should. I had a manager tell me a few weeks ago that he's pretty sure that one of his employees hasn't done anything for 2 months. And I almost fell off my stool. It's like, how could you let that go? Well, I don't know really how to deal with it. He didn't know how to handle it because he wasn't sure why the guy wasn't doing it, and he wasn't face to face, and poor guy. And you've got to nip problems in the bud. You know what the number one demotivator is in this country? Demotivator, the number one thing that people say demotivates them and causes them to become disengaged is that their supervisor tolerates poor performance. Yeah, you heard me right. Their supervisor tolerates poor performance. Good chance you've been in this situation where you're working your little tail off and somebody close to you, a coworker, is not, and it seems like the boss is doing nothing about it. And then to cap it all off, the boss comes to you and asks you to do a little more because you're all behind. You're like, we can see how it could become a big demotivator. So we really need to be on top of these problems. We need to keep up with things, and we can't use the changes that are going on and the remote working environment to ignore them. It's more important than ever that we address problems. So here's a few tips on this one for you. First thing is to give clear assignments. Back to clarity, right? Make sure that people know what your expectations are, set deadlines for the work, and follow through on them. Give constant feedback, positive and redirection. If they need redirection, give it to them, and be willing to receive it in return. I went to a meeting in, I think it was beginning of last year, back when we were allowed to have meetings, and there was a panel discussion of millennials, and they were talking about what they need from their bosses. And the thing that they were talking about was, this one person said, look, what I really need is feedback. I need honest, open feedback, good or bad. I want to know how I'm doing. And every single person on that panel was like, yes, absolutely. That's number one important. I have to have that from my boss. I have to have that feedback. They really want that feedback. When you think about millennials, we gave them participation trophies. So it kind of makes sure, it makes sense that they want to make sure, that they're getting some feedback and know how they're doing. So that feedback is so important. Positive redirection. Make sure you're talking to them about how they're doing. I've used some anonymous polls and surveys to get feedback. Like we've used some polls here today. I don't know who responded but just the polls are anonymous and you can kind of get a feel of what's going on just by asking some good questions anonymously. SurveyMonkey is another good polling tool that you can use that allows for anonymous input. Things like I have the tools I need to do my job. Things like I know what's expected of me at work. I understand what the main thing is. So there's all kinds of just maybe a question a week or something to just keep your fingers on what's going on with your folks. The idea about virtual lunches, here it is, that's a good idea. And here's probably the most important thing is just pay attention. Just pay attention to what's going on. It's a challenging time to supervise people who are working remotely and even people who are in your office because we have so many distractions, so much change, but pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention, watch for changes in behavior, watch for changes in level of interest, watch for changes in mood. When there is change of this magnitude, perspective is different for people. And sometimes some people have a harder time moving through these things than others. And sometimes you'll see physical and emotional signs. So pay attention, watch for what's going on. All right, and here's number 5. And this one, even though I didn't like addressing problems, I love addressing this one. And this is about work-life integration, not balance. I'm on a campaign to do away with the whole term work-life balance. When I grew up in the state government system, I worked for the state of Florida for a long time as a manager and a leader. And we used to talk about balance all the time. And every time we would talk about balance, I would think this is just a whacked concept because, they were very clear that what I was to teach my employees and what I was to understand is that work is work and home is home, and the two shouldn't cross. When you're at work, you just focus on work. You shouldn't be taking personal calls or answering personal email or any of those things because you're at work. When you're at home, same thing. You shouldn't be thinking about work. You shouldn't be doing work. That's just kind of bogus when you think about it. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have one brain and I never go to work that I don't think of home, and I never go home that I don't think of work. Sometimes I get my best ideas for work at home, right? And vice versa. So I want to change it. I want it to be work-life integration. And I think we're perfectly poised right now to really put our arms around this because we are seeing our employees and our remote workers at a whole different level of vulnerability. We are seeing inside their homes, we're seeing their kids, we're seeing how they live, we're seeing their pets, we're seeing their spouses. This is a really good time for us to really embrace this concept and understand that, they're people and we have new ways of seeing them in ways that we never did before. So just, learning to be empathetic. People just want us to care. There was this guy named James Autry. He wrote a book called For Love or Profit a few years ago. And his thing was everybody deserves special treatment. Everybody deserves special treatment. He tells this whole story about his boss would say, nobody around here deserves special treatment. And Jim Autry said, everybody deserves special treatment. And I agree. I think everybody deserves special treatment. So this is really a time for us to look at work-life integration, not balance. Let's change this for the future. Let's change this for the better. Let's understand that someone who's working at their best is feeling good on both levels. and there's a good integration of their personal and their professional life, that makes both of them better. Happier employees, right? That's my campaign, work-life integration. All right, so those are the 5 tips I have for you today. Clarity, practicing mindful communication, engaging everyone, addressing problems, and promoting that work-life integration. These are tips for managing in the virtual world. They're tips for managing anytime, right? But like I said, perspective is a little different. Things are different. There's a lot of change. So we have to apply them in new ways. For the very last poll, and I hope everybody will participate. So Karen, if you want to throw that very last poll up, what I'd like to ask you at this point is, which one of these would you say is currently your #1 priority? Which one of these do you think after you leave here today you need to go work on right away? Because this is the one that's really going to help you. This is one you really need to focus on. So if you would, quit reading your email. Just kidding. I know how hard it is to stay on one thing. Go ahead and vote. What is your #1 priority? Is it purpose, clarity, making sure that people are very clear about what they're doing? Is it communication, really enhancing the way that you're communicating with your employees, keeping everyone engaged and involved in solving problems, helping them to be part of the solution, not part of the problem, addressing problems, taking care of things that need to be solved, not sweeping them under the carpet or ignoring them, or promoting work-life integration? Karen, what do we got? Okay. All right, here we got practice mindful communication and promote work-life integration. Both came up. All right, good. Whichever one of these it is for you, I just hope that'll give you some clarity in your mind about what to focus on and how to go forward. All right. Thank you, Karen. So we have a few minutes for questions. Karen, you have any questions pending out there? You're muted. Karen, you're muted.
Hey, I'm unmuted now. So, well, thank you, Lorna. Here's a question. What would be the best way to bring staff back after COVID? Like as a manager, is there some steps of bringing the staff back into the work environment, back into the building?
Oh boy. See, I think we're going to be stronger when we come back, because we have alternate ways of doing things that we didn't consider before. And I think, like, for me, my business is going through a dip for sure, but I think I'm going to be so much stronger because I am thinking in different ways and working in different ways. And if I include the people around me and helping me to find those solutions, I think we're going to do well. So I would say the best thing to think about is, don't think about me, think about we. What are we going to do? How are we going to move forward? And if you can get that team around you and everybody working together on this, there's just no stopping you. I'm very optimistic.
Yeah. So, what do you think a manager should do if he is noticing that an employee is not adapting? What kind of steps would you encourage that manager to do?
Well, the first thing is I would have an honest one-on-one conversation with them. And if you can do it in person, that's cool, but it's not always possible. So sometimes you have to do it on Zoom. And if you have to do it on Zoom or on one of the other applications, try to look right into that camera and, make them think you're talking to them, and do the heart to heart the best you can. So the first thing is a conversation, but the good news is there's also a lot of resources available to people who are not doing well right now. And maybe before you have that conversation, line up those telephone numbers. Like if you're an organization that has, a helpline for your employees or has a referral service for employees who need some extra help, have those numbers ready. Maybe even just drop them to everybody. By the way, everybody, if you're having a tough time adjusting, don't forget that we offer this. Call this number. It's private. It's confidential. I think just making it available to people, helping them to understand. So many times that I feel when I'm trying to help people who are really struggling, They just don't know the resources that are available to them. And sometimes it's not a really hard solution. It's just the right webinar, the right message from the right person at the right time, a team meeting where everybody shares. Like yesterday, I was really struggling with a decision in my business that I don't know what to do. And I've been driving myself crazy walking around the room, and finally, pacing around my desk. So finally it's like, something popped up and I said, I'm just going to call them. I'm just going to call them and I'm going to say, here's my problem. So I called them and I said, and it was somebody I didn't know, a complete stranger, trying to give me advice. And my first question was, do you have a psychology degree? Because I think I need a psychologist. And, they laughed. No, I don't have a psychology degree. I said, okay, well, get ready for a weird question. And I just poured out the problem and said, here's the problem. And even though they really didn't know a lot about what I was saying, they said enough to help my thinking shift. And you know what they said to me? They said, just know that you're not out there on an island. There are plenty of people in this situation. And that's all it took, really. I mean, it was like, oh, okay, it's not just me. I'm not crazy. There are other people having the same issue, and I know I have to fix it myself, but just having just a little bit of empathy, sometimes from somebody, just makes all the difference. So just if you have employees who are suffering, or if you're suffering yourself, just know people really do care. We want you to be okay. Let your employees know you want them to be okay, that we're going to get through this. And if we can just start to look at it differently, because I'm telling you, it's really a pretty cool time to live in business and to see the changes that are happening. I mean, I hate the whole COVID part and everything that's happening with that, but wow, business is like, it's just no telling how cool this is going to be someday. And when we get through COVID, it's like so much opportunity. And if we can start looking at the positive aspects, it'll make a big difference for us.
Okay, well, Lorna's book, Becoming a Better Boss, definitely check that out. Lorna has presented, this is her third presentation. So if you would like to go back on our YouTube channel, she did Right Person, Right Time, and then Leading in Times of Change. So this, and then today. So if you missed the opportunity to hear her speak, please go to our YouTube channel. That way you can review the webinars, and of course her book, it will be a wonderful resource in management as well. So
Thank you, Karen.
you're welcome. So
well, thanks everybody. Good luck out there. We're going to be okay.
Yeah, don't forget, we will be sending out evaluations. We appreciate your time, and feel free to go back to our website and register for some additional webinars. They're going through the mid-February, so there's some other webinars coming up that you might not want to miss, and please encourage other people in the community to jump in and then take advantage of this CARES program that we are offering for the small businesses. So everybody have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. And Lorna, again, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks everybody for being with us today.